Hey everyone, it's Sam Smith, Realtor with JP and Associates Realtors. Today is June 25th. I always have to look at my calendar every time I do this because every day is running together at this point. I can't always keep track. Anyhow, it's June, the end of June already, and I've got a new guest today. Her name is Robin Cervantes, and she owns a business in Georgetown called Sanctuary Holistic Kitchen. And I have to admit, Robin, when I first found out about your business, I was kind of jealous in a way because you actually opened the same kind of business that I always kind of dreamed of having, and I always knew that Georgetown needed. So I'm excited to have you on this interview because I really want to find out more about you, more about your background. I was looking at your website, and you have just a long list of education, experience. You've been a chef. You've been, it says here you're the head master brewer of Kombucha at Sanctuary. So tell us a little bit more about you.
So I have been sort of at the realm of Sanctuary Holistic Kitchen for the past 5 years, but it's definitely a culmination of many parts of my life. I started out in fitness and as a professional dancer and sort of meandered into holistic health when I started having some health problems. I used to do a lot of one-on-one coaching when I lived in New York, and that was sort of the scope of my practice as I was a counselor for others to make healthier choices in their lives, and I specialized in food sensitivities. And then when I had my little one, that sort of schedule didn't really work for me anymore, and so I needed to redirect my passions and creativity, and just really became passionate about educating others and helping others live a healthier lifestyle. Maybe if they don't have the means to facilitate it themselves. And so I feel like I am like the master facilitator of so many different things, whether it's herbalism or food, or if you want to learn how to do something yourself. And so that's sort of what encompasses Sanctuary Holistic Kitchen.
All right. So that's one of the things I was going to ask you is if you had sort of a defining moment that led you down this path. I know that, as a dancer, you probably, your health is extremely important, your physical health. And so did something just happen? You don't have to go into details about your health unless you like to share it.
Sure. So I was at sort of the peak of my career. I lived in Manhattan. I was auditioning and going to callbacks and doing shows very regularly, and that was the bulk of my income. When I wasn't dancing, I was a personal trainer for post-rehab athletes. And so everything in my life was very physical. I felt that I was eating and doing things in a really healthy way for me, and at 26, my body fell apart, which is not the time when your body should be falling apart. And I was just tired all the time. I was sick all the time. I didn't have a good immune system. My gut was a wreck. My joints were becoming problems. I was getting reoccurring injuries, and every doctor that I went to just said that I needed to pretty much take a nap or rest more, that I was doing too much. But there's too many things happening at too many different energetic standpoints that I knew something else was going on. And so I sort of lived within that for about 3 or 4 years. And then I decided to go to school for holistic nutrition and do more of a food fix for my health and see if there was something going on there. I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, which teaches over 100 different dietary theories, and tried a bunch of them on. And at the time that I was in the program, they had paired you up with an ambassador or somebody who had been through the program before, like a mentor. And the woman that I was paired up with specialized in food sensitivities. So when we had our first or second meeting, and I said, well, I've tried all of these things, and I'm still sort of falling apart, and I don't know what's going on. And she said, I think that you should really look into testing your food sensitivities, which we did.
Mhm.
And when I got the results back for that, it came out that all of the healthy foods that I was eating, I was reacting to.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
it was things like Greek yogurt and walnuts and green beans and
Wow.
asparagus and
Huh.
eggs and
Wow.
all really healthy foods, but
Yeah.
not for my body.
Wow.
And so it took about a year for me to remove those foods and see any sort of an improvement. And since then, I feel awesome.
Oh,
Um,
great.
so when I started practicing, that's what my area of focus was food sensitivities and inflammation.
Okay.
When my practice sort of came to a close after having my little one, I wanted to really build a brand and a company that specialized in a top allergen-free aspect, whether it's topical or foods or internal remedies.
Mhm.
It needed to be something that was easy to navigate.
Mhm.
I felt that when I went and looked for replacement foods or replacement shampoos and soaps and things, the laundry list of ingredients is like 30, 40 ingredients on a bottle. And it's kind of hard to like sit there and figure out what all of those things are.
Yeah.
And so at Sanctuary Holistic Kitchen, everything's top allergen free, but then everything is under 10 ingredients. And we all use food grade ingredients, even for our topical things.
Mhm.
And so when somebody who has an allergy looks at the label, they're easily able to see what sort of ingredients are in there in 10 to 15-second read through.
Wow. See, yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I hear you preaching to the choir here, because this is one of the things that is like so near and dear to my heart, because, you know how it is. I mean, we encounter people. I mean, I lived in New York too, and you do get a lot more exercise just because you're walking around, and your life is just more physical. But then coming back to Texas, after I had my little one, I just it struck me that so many of my peers, my friends, people in my family just were having all these health issues, and a lot of people were not getting exercise. They were not eating the right way, and like you said, you can even be thinking that you're eating the right way, but if it's not correct for your body, then it just doesn't matter. So you said you went through like a food sensitivity test. What kind of test is that? And is that something you can get done here in sort of the Central Texas area?
Yes. So the food sensitivity testing is not something that you would get done at an allergist. It's not something that's usually covered by insurance because it's a more holistic approach. There are some naturopathic physicians that will offer it. It's called an IgG antibody test.
Okay.
And it's a delayed onset. So if somebody had a food allergy to peanuts or gluten or dairy, very immediately or shortly after eating the food, they would have a very obvious reaction. If it was hives or anaphylaxis or immediate gastric upset, something like that, it would be very apparent of what food that was. With food sensitivities, there's a delayed onset of anywhere from 4 to 20 days after you eat the food. And so even if you're super meticulous and you love to do a food journal, like that is your passion, it's really difficult to figure out what the foods are, because you would have to isolate each individual thing that you eat. And so the IgG antibody test is a finger prick test usually. It can also be a blood draw through the arm. And they'll test that with anywhere from 100 to 200 different foods that are the most common allergens. And it gives you a pretty obvious graph of what level of inflammation you have. I know there's several naturopathic physicians that offer it. I offer an at-home test kit that you can take home to do it yourself. And I act as like the liaison between the lab and the person doing the testing.
Oh, okay. See, that's great to know, because that's another thing. It's just so hard to figure out, I know there are resources out there, but how do you know where to go? And so you have all this experience, you have this education and, personal experience that, it's great that people could know that they can contact you and, get some help with that. So then are you from Texas, or how did you get
I'm not. No, I'm originally from Florida. I still consider myself a New Yorker. I lived there for so long, and it was such a big passion of my life living there. So I'll always be a New Yorker.
Yeah.
But I've been here in Texas for about a little over 5 years now, 5-6 years.
Okay. Did you know anyone here? Is that why you came, or did you just?
My brother-in-law lives here. He lives in Round Rock, and my husband has a lot of his family's in the military, and so he was getting ready to leave for a deployment and said, "Hey, you want to come take care of my house and my boys and my dogs and all of the things?"
Oh, wow.
And so we did that as to sort of try on like a new home, and really fell in love with it here.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, so did you just jump right into creating the sanctuary, or did you start the store and then start kind of like, how did the business evolve?
Yeah, so there's been a bunch of different layers. So when I was doing health coaching in New York, I did some personal chef services that catered to people with very specific diets. And so when I moved down here and started to develop what Sanctuary Holistic Kitchen looked like, I started more with natural remedies and some topical remedies, both internal and topical, and started selling at farmers markets just to see what sort of the draw was, get some feedback from people that were trying it out, because I was trying it on my family and they'll all tell me that they love it, but like getting honest feedback from the consumers are important.
Yeah.
And so I did farmers markets for a long time, and it snowballed into doing like a 4-tent setup at Wolf Ranch Farmers Market. So it was pretty much an entire store. We did all of our skincare and topical remedies. We did kombucha on tap. We had prepackaged foods, like so many things.
Wow.
And that just became exhausting, having to set up an entire store in an hour, be out in the elements, the rain and the cold and the heat and the sun and everything, and then strike it down. And only having one selling day a week was challenging.
Sure.
I had sublet a few different commercial kitchens to process some of my things that I made, and felt that it was time that I really had my own space, that I didn't have to answer to anybody except for me, which worked really well for my personality type. And so I looked for a space that was in Georgetown because I really loved it here and had a really nice client base. But I wanted to have a facility that I could also do some hands-on classes as well, because I love teaching. I love educating others and empowering others on how to live their best life. And so up until COVID happened, we had a hands-on teaching kitchen here that was in our production kitchen. And so people can come in and they would learn things from like gluten-free meal planning to fermenting vegetables to how to brew kombucha. We did smudge bundle tying workshops, meditation practice. And so it was a whole scope of holistic modalities.
Wow, very good. So that brings us to the current state of the state and how everything has changed so much. And I know actually I've been in the store once before, so, we just talked in passing, but I ordered some stuff from you and had curbside pickup a month ago, I guess. But, you were open, I think, for a little while, but I think you've closed back down, haven't you? Or how are you handling?
We've been open the entire time. We're considered an essential business because we're a food manufacturer. We're also food retail. And so the scope of the business changed at the initial closures. I brought in tons of pasture raised animal proteins from local ranchers that needed to move their product before they couldn't get to markets. I brought in gluten-free bread and eggs and staples and things like that. I took most of our ingredient stock list and offered it for bulk because we make a lot of things with dried nuts and grains and all sorts of things. And we became a little bit of a top allergen-free grocery pickup. And so during the stay-at-home orders, we were doing curbside pickup. about a month ago, we opened our doors to single person in-store shopping with a mask on. Our store is the tiniest little space.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
the only way that we could do it, keeping social distancing. And then today we have gone back to curbside pickup, but we're still in operation. We still have our online ordering if you wanted to pre-order. I'm slowly moving my menus to the front windows because people like to sort of scroll more on something physical than on a screen.
Yeah.
We're still here.
Well, and so as of today, you said you're all right. It's crazy. I don't know.
Yes. So we're back to curbside, and for a bunch of reasons. It's I have my little one here with me all the time, and it's just to keep things moving in the right direction and being able to still get things to people safely. This is what we feel is working the best.
Yeah, I think that's great. And your website has a lot of detail on it, and and I love your packaging. I love your logo and all that stuff. And the brown bottles they're comforting because they feel so natural in some ways. But one of the things that you were talking about is your events and classes. Since you can't do those in person anymore, are you trying to develop a new sort of model for doing that, or what are you doing in that front?
So I felt that when we all went to stay-at-home orders and everybody was homeschooling from home and working in front of a Zoom meeting and all of those things, everybody was inundated with online access. And so in the beginning, we were trying to get some of our classes and try to get some of our teachers to offer up some free education videos and things like that. And it just felt like it was too much. Yeah. It was just too much screen time. It's too much screen time for us, too much screen time for everybody who want to hear what we have to say. Yeah. And so I really focused all of the energy on producing the best, cleanest products as possible and making things accessible to the community. I've sort of gone down to, I'm the only one in the shop working most of the time. I have a helper come in occasionally for packaging. But other than that, it's me and my little one here. And so we have found a healthy balance as much as it can be to sort of keep things moving and keep the customers happy. I keep tooling with the idea of doing some like wild harvesting workshops, something like that outside. I
want to do that. So tell me for sure, because I'm always looking at pictures and I know there's all kinds of stuff in my backyard that I'm not trying to grow, but it's growing.
One of my favorite classes that I did, it had to be like, it was the day that I tore all the ligaments in my ankle. So like one day I was teaching a class and the next day I was in a boot. So it was the beginning of March. Okay. We did a wild edible class at Berry Springs Park. And it was one of my favorite things that I've done because it brought in all new faces. So there was a couple of faces that I recognized, but most of them were brand new. We just roamed around the park and showed them things that would be growing in their yard. And they got to harvest some. And I told them what to do with it when they went home to make like a little pesto for some soup or something like that. And it was so much fun. And so every time I see like one of the flower seasons start, I'm like, oh, maybe we should get out there and do like a bee balm class. Everybody can go to Lake Georgetown and pick some flowers and I'll teach you what to do with it.
Well, everyone started gardens apparently, like once they stayed at home. I mean, but that's the thing. I was looking around. We're in kind of a new neighborhood and there's a lot of wild stuff growing. I know a lot of it is edible, but it's a matter of not knowing what to do with it.
Yeah, one of the nice things that happened with all of the closures, because people were passionate about starting their own gardens and doing something at home and growing their own food, we partnered with one of the oldest organic growers in Georgetown and brought in tons of their plants. And so we were able to facilitate that for people too, to help them grow vegetables and medicinal plants and things like that. So
yeah, good to know. Well, we're getting some feedback. I don't know if it's on my side or yours, but Is that?
There we go. I might have fixed it.
Oh. But, you know, this stuff is not perfect. We do what we can, right? So what was it? Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. I just bought some sunscreen at HEB today, and my daughter took it outside to use it, and then she texted me and she said, "Take this back, it's got poison in it." I was like, okay. So what do you recommend for sunscreen? I mean, it's summertime, and do you have something that you make in the store, or do you have anything?
Yeah, so we don't make any sunscreen in our line yet. It's sort of been on my project board of something that I've wanted to do. But there are a couple different options. So something that you can find more easily at most stores, there's a brand called Alba, A-L-B-A.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
And they are almost 100% natural. So like if you have to buy one at a store, like that's the safest bet to go.
Okay.
And it's actually the only one that works for me. I turn lobster red if I'm out in the sun without anything on. And so that is the only one that I can stay outside for hours, and it works really well. Okay. It's also great for sensitive skin. It's top allergen free and all of that. And that's the most easy, accessible one that you can find. We do carry a local crafted brand here called Stouter House. She is based out of Salado and makes like a barrier cream is what it's called, because unless you're FDA approved and tested, you cannot put sunscreen on there. So you kind of have to be creative when you're looking for small business produced sunscreens that might not always be called sunscreen. So always ask. But hers is called barrier cream, and it works really, really well.
Okay. Wow. Very good to know. Yeah. Because I was like, great. I mean, you know what the labeling is like. I mean, I went on the shelf and I was like, okay, this one says it's blah, blah, blah free, like one of those chemicals you can't pronounce the name. And then, so I thought, well, maybe that's the better one to get. And then, of course, she reads more than I do, I guess, these days. And she was like, this is poison. So, all right. Well, I guess we could go ahead and wrap it up. I'm so glad that you were able to talk to me for a few minutes here. And I hope we have, questions once the video ends up on Facebook. I hope if anyone has any questions that they'll feel free to post in the comments and just let us know, how you can help, because I can tell that you are you have a very servant heart. You're giving because you see there's a void out there that people could probably fairly easily kind of make their life better, so. All right. Well,
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. All right. If you'll hang on just for a second, I'm going to end this and we'll talk for a second afterwards. All right. Thank you, everyone.